Welcome back to another episode of Tractor Roy. My name's Trent. Today we're working on the John Deere 70. Got a couple other things we need to tidy up on this thing before we take it out of the shop, bring the next project in. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please make sure to do that now. So on the list today, one of the quick things, I got my light bracket all mounted up, so I got to just stick the new LED lens in there. Then our headlights will be done. Then I got to go do an oil change. I got some hydraulic hoses that need replaced. They're looking a little worse for wear. And I need a new water temp gauge. The oil pressure works. The ammeter isn't hooked up because I'm putting an alternator on this thing. But that temp gauge isn't working and I can't even read the gauge if it did. And I think depending on the length of the video, we're going to pull this clutch apart. It's sticking, so I think I'm going to pull everything out, lube up this shaft here, and see if we can get that working correctly. So all my wires are already ran. I have a previous video that I kind of rewired stuff, retimed it. When we go through and work on this stuff, especially when we do a rewire, I really like these LED lights, and especially this kind that I'm using here. They still kind of keep the stock appearance, but they're so much brighter than those old halogens, especially the 6 volt. And, well, this one was 12 volt to begin with, but on the 6 volt tractors where we convert everything over, I mean, you can't use those old headlights anyway, so may as well go with some LEDs. So on this setup, I've got 2 wires running to it because I don't want to deal with the grounding to this. As you can tell, this came off a different tractor and it's a little rough. So I've got my black as the common, and it goes back to the frame underneath the dash where it shouldn't corrode as fast. It should be protected and out of the elements. Usually you can just run that common to anywhere on the frame, but I really don't want to have to mess with these again. On these particular lights, they're not polarity sensitive. On a lot of LEDs, it depends on which one you put the positive and negative on, so you got to pay attention to that. These ones doesn't matter what goes where. I just want to make sure that these don't stick out and short to the back here. There. Before we move on, we'll check to make sure these lights work. And that one does too. Dang, those things are bright. I like them. This is the same light I put on my Farmwell 240, and they work great. Okay, so just in case I get stopped for time today, I'm going to start working on this water temp gauge next. So here's the new one. How these things work, they're all one sealed unit. You can't disconnect it. They're filled full of, I think, ether. And as this warms up, that ether expands, and it travels through this coil, and then it'll push on the back side of this, and that's how you change your temperature. So you can't take this apart. Like, this is all one unit. You have to take it out whole, put it in whole. And this is where that water temp sensor comes in here, where the probe goes into the water jacket. So the coolant is above this. It's as high as the radiator is. So I can't, or when I take this off, it's going to start pouring coolant out. So I have to go to that end up on the dash, and I have to pull this gauge out. And then I have to stick that new probe through this hole, run it alongside of the probe for this gauge, and get it all ran how I want, and have it sitting right here. Then I have to hurry up, pull this out, pop the other one in so I can, not lose a whole bunch of coolant. I just replaced the water pump on this thing. It probably has like 2 hours of runtime on this new coolant, so I don't need to drain it, and I don't really want to drain it. On the back side of this gauge, it's just this strap. So I'll loosen up that bolt, and then pull this all the way off, and this gauge will just pop out the front. It'll still be hung up here because of this temp probe, but I'll at least be able to pull it out so I can get the new probe in there. Okay, there's that. I suppose I could just cut this probe off if I wanted to and let all that ether out because I'm not going to be reusing this gauge. But I don't know, I'm not. And the probe on this one's a lot longer than that old one, which is pretty sweet because it was kind of getting tight when I was trying to rewire this thing. I didn't have like any slack to pull this dash out, well, any farther than where it is right now. Oh, that's what we need, 5/8. Okay, it works on this one too. Nothing worse than not having the right wrench when you're leaking coolant everywhere. What? Well, this doesn't want to come out the way that
You take out that big one here and then
yeah, but then it's gonna. But I don't have a. This is the plug I got, so I got to reuse that, and then it's just gonna end up getting coolant everywhere. So I don't really want to pull that.
you're gonna have to drain the coolant again.
I just drained it.
Well, welcome to my world over here with
Oh yeah.
a leaky. I don't. What about this other one?
Oh, it's the parts.
That's got a big one too. Wait, what?
I feel like this thing's supposed to come out. It's just stuck.
Probably just rust.
So I wonder if I can break the seal here. Oh, that's big.
Oh, this. Oh. Ooh. There's
Nice.
one too.
Huh?
There's another one.
Sweet. Those are handy to keep around. Look at that.
Yeah. Now it makes sense, huh?
Well, slightly more.
Yeah, because it was.
Oh my god.
Oh, Jesus. Did it even move? Or did you just move it?
Oh, I rounded it.
Yeah. Is that the right wrench?
7/8. It wouldn't be metric. I don't even think metric was invented back then. We're gonna take a dead blow. Oh, I think I moved it. Maybe. Okay, here's where the entertainment starts. Ah!
Water's dripping on my head.
Well, it's better than over here.
You get it?
Kinda.
Probably should have put some Teflon on there.
Oh, I didn't want to have to deal with. Well, it's brass into a cast housing. I kind of figured it. Oh, shoot. What was that other size? Oh, it's this one. Okay. Now, some paper towel. See if it's still going to leak. Okay. I think it's good for now. Keep an eye on it, see how it does. Well, good thing it's it's not my shop, so I didn't make my floor all wet. Oh yeah, I don't know if that camera will do it justice. There, that looks way better than the one that doesn't work. Suppose I'll take care of this one here.
Oh.
Here's the oil filter we're using. There's the Wix part number. There's 2 gaskets that come with this. It just depends on what type your tractor is for which gasket you use. Here's our oil fill hole on the right side of the tractor. There's the petcock for our oil level check for the crankcase. Our oil drain is right back here, and then here's our filter canister right here. And this takes 12 quarts of oil, so we'll go ahead and grab ourselves 3 gallons here. This is the stuff I like to use in these. Okay, this plugs into the quarter. Oh, oh, shows tight. Ooh, nice and black. Wonder when this is last changed. Okay, we'll let that drain for a little bit before we remove our oil filter housing. Back in with our plug, and then try and wipe this down. That way when we fill it back up and go to run it, we can tell if anything's leaking or if it's just left over from draining out. Pro tip there. That way you're not fighting yourself. Okay. Ooh, same size for our filter housing. Okay, and then there's a spring in here, so it'll probably push out at me. I don't really want to dump it into our bucket. And there's kind of a lot of junk in here as far as pieces to this thing. Oh, but it should be attached, so I might have to pop that loose. Okay, what I don't really want to do is drop this into my bucket. Ah! Oh, saved it. Ow. I mean, I made a mess, but I saved it from going in there. Now what? Okay. Whew. Ow.
Nice.
No. Well, it just like fell on me. Ah. Ugh. So inside of this, there's a spacer, which I hope I got. Oh yeah. So there's a C-clip, then there's a spacer, then there's this plate, then there's another spacer, then there's a spring. Kind of a lot going on here. So I'll get this cleaned up and then we'll work on the rest of it here. So here's something kind of cool about these Wix filters. So this is a Napa branded filter. It's 1242. If you get just the Wix brand filter, well, this is still made by Wix, but if you get the Wix branded filter, they add a 5, so 51242. If you use the CarQuest filter, they add, I think, an 8, so it'll be 851242. Something along those lines. They just change the numbers, but basically, if most of them are right, then it's the same cross-referenced filter. Okay, take out this old O-ring, and it might take some effort. Yeah, I better take my own advice. Put on safety glasses. Doesn't take much effort to put them on, and it saves your eyes. So, gotta pull this one out. This is buried in there pretty good. Okay. Okay, I got that pulled out. I can feel it's metal, so there's not a second one in there. You want to make sure that you take that old O-ring out. If you double them up, very high chance that it leaks because it can't seal up with 2 of them rather than just 1. And then you want to try and put in a fresh gasket if you can. I'm pretty sure that the John Deere brand filters, if you get them from the dealer, don't come with that O-ring. You got to get it separately. If you get an aftermarket one like a Wix filter, then it comes with those O-rings. So, figure out which one it is. That one looks too small. This one looks too big. Yeah. So we'll use this slightly smaller one. It's a good idea to lubricate it. It makes it easier to come out later. You can either use new oil, or since there's already going to be some residual oil in here, you're not going to be able to get all that old stuff out. I just like using the old stuff. But it's a pretty good idea to lubricate this. It helps stuff from sticking a little bit. I mean, I don't know if it's totally necessary, but it can't hurt things, so. Okay, that smaller one is definitely the one we wanted. Okay, now I'm going to make sure that it's not rolled weird. Take my little pick and just tuck it all in. Oh. Got a glare from the garage door being open. It kind of makes it hard to see. Oh, we're twisted. Yep, we kind of were. So yeah, there's another good reason for kind of tucking things in. Okay. We're tucked into place. We're not twisted now. We only have one gasket in there, one O-ring. So on these new filters, I don't know if the old ones are any different, but there's gaskets, O-rings on each side, so it doesn't matter which direction you put on. I'm probably going to put it on so that you would be able to read the numbers, only because it sounds good like that. So I'm going to lubricate these a little bit to help them seal up. To those people that pre-fill your filters, I'm not sure what you want to do here. You're on your own. Okay, so we'll stick that up there. We'll get this thing going here. Get this bad boy started. Okay, and then once we get to towards the end here, I want to make sure that this thing's going to fit, that it's not going to get cocked. Ow, it's kind of cold out here. My fingers are hurting. Beautiful. In fact, I'll back it off. Give her a little twist, make sure it all lines up in there. Okay. So you want to snug this up so it doesn't leak, but you don't want to tighten it so hard that your filter housing starts collapsing, and it can do that. So, oh, it's pretty snug, but not overly tight. Now we'll go to the other end here and fill her up with 12 quarts of oil. Okay. So we have a petcock down here for checking the oil level. So we have a petcock down here. You fill it up until oil starts draining out of this thing, and then it's above that. There's no dipstick on these, it's just that petcock. So we'll fill it up from here. I got this open now. Once I put 2.5 gallons in, or whatever that is, 10 quarts, then I'll start keeping an eye as I fill this up. And you want it to start coming out here, but you don't want to like overdo it because you don't want to get way too high in here. But you do want to be above this level. Oh, so this is what I like to use, the John Deere Plus 50. This is diesel engine oil. A lot of people kind of get picky on their oil. I do to a point, I guess. I'm using diesel oil in this gas engine because new gas oils don't have the same, or they're a different specification than the diesel oils, so they don't have like the zinc and stuff that helps with flat tappet engines. That's just me being picky, I suppose. Just me being picky, I suppose. You could use gas oil and then add like zinc additive and stuff in there, but I had a truck that I stuck a new cam in, and it wiped the lifters on it, or wiped the lobes of the cam, and I kind of don't like changing cams out, so I use this stuff. Haven't had a problem with it. You know, use whatever you want, but basically any oil that's around nowadays is far and away better than what oil was around when they designed these things. So really anything that you're going to pull off the shelf is, as long as it's in the right weight category, you'll be good. I try and stay away from synthetics on this kind of stuff. Synthetic is way more viscous, so it'll sneak past a lot of old seals better, or, you know, harder than it'll sneak past seals more than conventional oil will. And then I like this 1540 just to keep oil pressure up. I mean, it gets warm here, but it doesn't get, maybe in the 80s, and it doesn't get too much higher than that. I like to use this 1540 because that's what most diesel oils come in for one. If I don't use this stuff, I like using Shell Rotella T, the T4. The thicker oil is better in warmer temperatures. When stuff gets hot, it gets more, or it gets thinner. So really, like when we're below zero here, this 1540, it kind of sucks when you're trying to crank stuff over when it's cold. But we don't use these things often enough in the winter to really necessitate that, or to make it necessary. This stuff pretty much gets used haying. We have a couple of tractors we use when it's colder outside, but like the one I use for plowing, it doesn't care about 1540. It's a 6-volt starter with a 12-volt conversion on it, so that starter still spins over even when it's cold outside. And I just try not to be on open station tractors when it's, you know, 20 or 40 below. Trying to wait till it's warmer. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is use what you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with this. I'm comfortable with Shell Rotella T4. I'm comfortable with the 1540 diesel engine oil in my gas. Use whatever you want. Same thing with filters. I mean, if you would prefer to get genuine John Deere filters, you know, more power to you. They're, as far as price goes, they're like the same price. You don't have to cheap out on filters. The closest John Deere dealer to me is like 150, 200 miles away, and yeah, I don't really want to keep doing that every time I go to get filters. So I'm a little bit short, maybe a quarter too short, but you can see there's oil coming out here. So our oil level is good. We're full on oil, but I'm going to add in just a little bit more, just so we can get over full. Or I'm going to add in just a little bit more to make sure that we're full, because it'll probably, once you start this thing up, it's got to fill the canister or fill the housing, fill all the oil passes and stuff, because this has sat for a while, so all this stuff has settled down to the bottom. So I'm going to run it, and then if I fill it up a little bit higher, run it, then it'll put us at a good level for running. Okay, I'm going to tighten up my petcock before I forget. And then I'm going to close my cap up. Okay, before I start working on anything else, I'm going to start this thing up, check for oil pressure after a couple of seconds, because it's got to fill everything up and prime. So it won't read pressure on the gauge immediately when you start it. And then I'm going to check for leaks on the bottom too. Okay. In neutral. Oh, wait, I gotta. Okay, I just turned on the gas. We're in neutral. Choke's pulled. Ignition's on. Oh, give her a little throttle. This thing might not like it. It was kind of cold last night. It was, I don't know, maybe 0. Well, so it might take a sec to start it. Ugh. Okay, still cold. So we had great oil pressure, and we don't got any leaks. We had great oil pressure. We didn't have any leaks from our oil filter canister, so that's good. That was there. So I'll just close everything back up, and then work on the other stuff. Okay, so the clutch is sticking on here. It'll engage just fine, and it stays engaged, but it doesn't want to disengage. You have to push the brakes and it'll break loose. So I think there's just a bunch of rust in here. So I'm going to see if I can pull these off, kind of lube up some stuff in here, because I think it's rusted. So I'm going to count how many turns I got to back these off, because it engages now, so I don't really want to mess with the adjustment here. Well, somebody's been into this clutch before, because I got 1 flat washer and 2 lock washers. Okay, so the springs look good on this thing. Wow. Oh boy, that is rusty. These don't look great. Also, these tabs are broken. 2 of the 3. God, this thing's been hammered on. Okay, now we got a driving steel. Another clutch disc. Oh! Boy, there's our issue. Dang. There's also nothing on this side. Wow. That's kind of unfortunate. Well, so much for that. Oh, what else we got in here? Another steel. So we're just totally missing the friction off of this. Wow. So, I mean, there should be another friction on the other side of this then. Unless this thing got put back in a weird order. No, there's frictions on each side. Wow, this thing got super hot. So my guess is they didn't adjust this clutch right, and it just burned it up. And then to get by, they just tightened up the adjustments until it, probably until they bottomed out, honestly. Yeah, they still had a couple of threads, but they weren't far off from it. Oh, so that was our issue. Shoot, dang it. Oh, I don't really want to pull that. Super bad. Okay, so to pull the rest of this, you got to take this off, and then this gear, and then you should be able to stick 2 bolts in here, and then use a puller to pop it back out. So I don't know what I'm going to do now. I need to replace this clutch, but I kind of want to be able to move this thing around, and oh, it's not like it's going to get much worse than what it is now. I'm not pulling with it, so I might just throw this stuff back together. Throw it together and it'll at least move out. So I know people are going to be screaming at me, but I put this back together. I actually think it's working better than what it was before, which I didn't fix the problem, but I at least skirted around it. I just realized I forgot to record that, so I just built a little bracket for this alternator. I didn't put a little back tab on here just because of how close this bolt was. I don't think it'll be an issue. This thing's pretty sturdy otherwise. And it's not like there's much of a load on this alternator, so this belt isn't going to be doing much. Most of my time was spent building this bracket for the C, the alternator on it, so I decided while I had the tools out, I was just going to throw one on this real quick. So now, I got to run a wire from here, and it goes up to the front here to tie onto where the battery is, so it'll charge up the battery. Then, I got my hydraulic hose all switched out, which is pretty easy. It was just one here and then a fitting up here. That was it. I think we're pretty much done with this thing, ready to pull it out now. Once I get that alternator hooked up at least. So thanks for joining me on this episode of Tractor Roy. I'm glad I was kind of able to get this thing finished up. At least ready to be where I'm okay with it. I got to replace this clutch. It's ordered. Should be here in the next few days, so I'll probably do a little video on that. So keep an eye out for that thing. Thank you for sticking through this with me. If you got any ideas for how I can make this better for the viewer, any ideas you'd like to see, anything else I should talk about, please leave it in the comments down below. It really helps me out to make sure I'm doing what I should be doing to keep everybody happy. So make sure to like this video, subscribe if you're not, so you can keep up with everything I'm working on, this tractor, all the other various projects I got running around. So thanks for watching. I hope I'll catch you on the next one.